are live, B's and G's.
All right, we're live. Hi, thanks for joining us. This is Dr. Kat on Ask Dr. Kat. We have a wonderful edition today for you, talking about sports psychology as well as mental toughness during this age of isolation. First, I want to introduce you to my co-host, the ever eloquent Alexis Dixon of Mediation Solutions International. Alexis?
The ever frozen and eloquent.
The never aging.
That's right. I was wondering if all of you froze for me, but it was just Alexis. The ever eloquent, now unfrozen, Alexis.
Hello, good to be with everybody. Hi.
And then Amanda Caniglia, who is, first of all, our producer who brings all of us together on the Bella V TV. But a special edition for you, Amanda, because you're here and you're the sister, or as you say, survivor, to your, to your brother, Dr. Michael Gerson. Amanda?
Yes, so I want to just take a moment, and I'm excited because we have my brother, who I swore I would never call doctor, but here we are today in quarantine, and I'm thrilled to be able to share with you a little piece of my family life and my brother and what he's been working on for so many years. He's an expert on mental toughness training, and don't worry, I'll give you guys all a few little nuggets of how I survived and became mentally tough. It started with my brother right here. And also, am I welcoming Abel as well?
Yes.
Do I get to do that? Okay.
But first, let me just tell Abe to turn on his mic.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome. And I'm also here to welcome Abe, who is one of our hosts, but today, as I'm coming on as sister and survivor of mental toughness training to Dr. Michael Gerson, Abe is coming on as a single parent and also someone who does extreme sports and relies on mental toughness training to get him through his physical endeavors. So, all right.
So Amanda, would you introduce your brother a little bit more formally before we get started?
Oh, you guys know intros are.
That's that sibling rivalry that came up there. She's like, I'm not calling him a doctor.
You have to be comfortable.
Yes, so I will give him his proper dues. So my brother, before he became a doctor, and he was an athlete. So my brother was a baseball player who realized how important it was to take those skills and apply them and help other people. So my brother was a very accomplished baseball player, and he went to Dana College, where he eventually went back to be a coach. And then after that, he traveled the world playing baseball as well. And then after that, he went to St. Mary's, was it, to get his master's in sports psychology. And then he went on to get his PhD. And now he's just been teaching, not just, see, I suck at intros. He went from, well, you went from your PhD, you were working with drill sergeants. And
yeah, working in the military with special forces operators and drill sergeants and a lot of different populations in the military. And then from there to first group special forces, and afterwards, director of mental skills with the Seattle Mariners. And then Max came along, and I pivoted and got into academia, which still I'm surprised, but I just landed a full-time faculty position at John F. Kennedy University, which we just found out the other day is going to be National University, started January 1st.
Wow.
oh,
And Max is 3, is that right?
Max is 3.5. Yep.
Oh.
Congratulations on little Max. Is he watching?
No, he's probably destroying something right now.
I'm sure.
So I have him, and I have my 15-year-old daughter, Ziana. So those are my 2 children.
Yeah. So to get into it immediately, what does a doctor of sports psychology, or who specializes in sports psychology, do? When we think of sports psychology, which you specialize in, I think we have a sense of what that is because we hear that word thrown around all the time. But what is actually the work of someone who does that?
Yeah, so I mean, to back it up maybe just a little bit and give you like a textbook definition of sports psychology and then a down and dirty definition of sports psychology. Sports psychology is the study of how psychological factors influence performance and how health and exercise and well-being impact psychology. But my favorite definition is the art and science of kicking ass. And that's basically what we do is we teach and train people and help people develop certain mental capacities to be able to perform at your best when it matters most. When you're under duress, when you're under pressure, when the game's on the line. And as you guys know, as you start to climb that competitive ladder, there's a lot on the line. So can you, in those moments when the lights are on and everybody's watching you, can you get that hit? Can you, nail down that 3-pointer? Can you make that penalty shot?
Why isn't physical toughness enough? I mean, people go to the gym, they pump iron, we take pride in someone's physical stature. Why isn't physical toughness enough?
Yeah, well, we're our own worst enemies, and our minds play tricks on us, and we deal with a lot of anxiety, and we can have negative thought processes, poor affirmations. We are really good at beating ourselves up, especially when it's something that really matters to us, when we want, that outcome, that trophy, that award, and it's super meaningful. And so really sports psychology is about like amplifying those positive mental skills and then deactivating all those, mental landmines such as anxiety and fear, negative thinking and doubt and worry. So the mind and the brain, it's a big part of whatever we do and how well we do it. And so the better you are at managing, the mental aspects of your performance, the better you will do.
Dr. Gerson, just to follow up on what Alexis was saying, it's sort of a false dichotomy to say that it's the mind versus the body versus the mental versus the physical, that the two are really connected. And one of the ways that I teach the kids I work with on this is if you were to imagine that you're holding a lemon, you slice it in half, it's glistening, and then you hold it over your mouth and you squeeze that lemon. And as you imagine the lemon drops falling into your mouth, oftentimes the kids will tell me, my mouth is salivating. I don't know about you right now, but my mouth is, as I was imagining that. And that's one powerful, small way of showing them that your mind, what your mind thinks, what your mind does can elicit a physical reaction, right?
Yeah, no, there's a great quote, what the mind can see and perceive, the mind believes. And so we use that lemon, we have a lemon script, and we call it imagery, and we read something very similar to what you're talking about. You have a visceral reaction by closing your eyes and thinking just about anything. We respond to it, and the mind really just doesn't know the difference between, reality and, what you're thinking or dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
So imagery is probably the most powerful skill. It's a mastery level skill that combines a lot of the other tactics that we use. And imagery really is about creating or recreating an experience in the mind using all of the senses. Thinking about athletes, maybe it's like when I played college sports, the night before a game, I would close my eyes, know who the pitcher was the next day, and then do maybe about 5 minutes of relaxation to get my mind and body in control and in sync. And then from there, imagine myself, in a variety of successful situations, hitting the outside pitch to the right side, moving a runner over, gobbling up that baseball at shortstop, stealing that base. And it's a way of kind of programming yourself to prepare yourself for excellent performances.
I do know when I was a dancer. Oh, I was just going to say, when I was a dancer, this wasn't really a big thing, mental training and mental toughness. And I think it was my senior year, our ballet teacher had us lie on the floor and do just that, close our eyes and visualize. And people that weren't able to bust a double, triple, whatever the turn was, ballet class, we got up and like, bam, we were able to do it. And it's that skill that you're going like, oh man, I wish I had that, you know, when I was 5 dancing, 6, 7, not when I was 21. But it's such a powerful tool to utilize when you're coming to the plate, or when, you know, the curtain rises and it's showtime. I should have done it. I should have done it for the intro today.
Yeah, and it's good for a lot of reasons. You know, it's good for preparation. It's good for, you know, harnessing your mind, you know, to get really focused and concentrated, and then to create images of success. So, you know, you've stepped up there, you've done it before, you've done it over and over, you've seen yourself accomplish it and nail that move, which increases, you know, your confidence. And, you know, confidence really is king. I feel like the more confident you are, the more ready you are to take on, you know, that stressful situation.
For the person with a fertile mind, for the person who has a mind where the thoughts are coming and they're having difficulty calming down the mind, talk about the power of concentration and imagery. And I'll bring it home to parents. I'm a parent, I've got 3 kids, and I've got one child and another child, and the phone is ringing, and I'm homeschooling, and I've got to think of my business and I have to apply. How do you bring that kind of focus and imagery into something that can coalesce into my visualizing myself being calm and attending to the things I need to attend to?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You know, today we live in this, you know, stress-filled life. You know, this whole society and culture has the case or the touch of the ADHD. It's turbocharged, it's fast, it's coming at us hot. So not only is there a lot of stress, but there is also, we're constantly distracted. And science has really proven that we cannot multitask. There's no such thing, we multi-do. And so when you're trying to do many different things at once, like my niece was reading a book and pouring cereal today and missed the bowl. And my nephew had his headphones on and was pouring milk and missed the glass, you know? So it's really difficult to do something, you know, perfectly or great or sufficiently if you're not all there. And so there's a lot of different focus techniques and concentration techniques that we can help our you know, youngins develop and learn and practice and hone. Most of those are a little bit different than you know, the imagery techniques that we can use. Imagery can increase attention, focus, and concentration, but there's a lot of other ways to train our ability to sustain our focus for longer periods of time. What
of that? Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just asking, is there anything that you guys use, you know, in the past or currently to be able to help with, you know, your child's or children's ability to focus at the task at hand?
Well, it's interesting. This is a question that I received from 2 different people, one person in Australia, another one locally here within the same couple of days. So it's interesting. I think a lot of other parents are probably wondering about this. And they're asking about multimedia, multitasking, and if this is causing damage to their child's brain. And so, Michael, one of the things that came up is, you know, there's a plethora of studies that show that, for example, with college students who do that multimedia or multitasking, and the level of confidence, you talked about confidence earlier, is really high. So the college students, for example, were tested, and they rated themselves of having very high confidence in their ability to multitask. And they predicted that their scores were going to be high. And then when we looked at the actual scores, the multitaskers had, you know, significantly lower scores, you know, so they weren't able to, and it was a mismatch. They didn't have a recognition that they weren't able to multitask. And when you don't have that recognition, then you think, I don't need to single task. I'm able to multitask just fine. You don't realize you missed out on it. And I certainly, for parents, I think that that's coming up a lot because like my friend from Australia, Michelle, she mentioned that her child, who's 6, he's playing a video game on his iPad, and then he's got a picture in the window of a TV show that he likes. So he's basically doing both at the same time. So Michael, what do you say to that? What do you think?
Yeah, it's something that just as a part of this world. I don't know how it's ever going to change or if it's ever going to end. I'm experiencing the same thing, just having 2 children of my own, and then being around my niece and nephew. And there is a real confidence, borderline arrogance and pride that I can handle all these different things at the same time and still get the job done. But it's a lot like, when you're on the phone and then your mom or dad is talking to you and telling you, hey, tell Amanda this and this and that, and you cannot fully focus and listen mindfully and absorb that information when somebody, is chattering in your ear hole. So a lot of arrogance, overconfidence, it's proven, research evidence-based that, performance starts to deteriorate. The other thing I feel that it makes a tremendous impact just on our ability to relate to other people and our ability to be there in the moment, connecting with someone else. As you're talking to somebody and their thumbs are working a mile a minute.
Yeah, Leo's got that line down. He's got his school going, and then his friends have Discord, and then they're playing Minecraft. And I'm like, kid, like, can you just show the teacher respect, and can you show your classmates respect? He's like, Mom, I'm multitasking. And I'm going like, oh my God, this kid, he's like, I know every answer. But how do you explain to an 11-year-old, like, no, you're not concentrated, you're not fully present, A, in terms of respect, and B, of being able to really, really absorb the information. But it's interesting what you're saying, that point to like being arrogant. I know that for me, I used to pride myself like, oh, I can do it all. I can multitask. I'm a mom. I'm, at the cafe, and I kind of work in this world of chaos, and somehow it gets done. But would I be much more effective if I was concentrating doing one thing at a time? So we used to, wear it like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's old, men sitting around the water cooler bragging about, I only got like 4 hours of sleep last night, like 5 days in a row. And here I am, Hercules and He-Man, and I can get the job done. Like, we gotta be smarter than that nowadays. And so, there's a lot of training that you can do to be able to help, sustain focus over time. And a lot of it is like removing all of that distraction and cognitive noise. I don't know how they do it. I need, like, a lot of times, just utter silence to be able to complete any task. I couldn't imagine doing, 5 things at once, which these kids seem to do.
You mentioned that, what you do with your kids. I've got a 19-year-old now and a 14-year-old. And throughout those years, what I've seen is when, my kids were at home and sitting around playing video games, they were less likely to listen to me, less likely to do chores. As I put them more in sports and whatnot, I saw a lot of that diminish. And I'm coming from a background in the culture where, focus was, hey, get to, do your job. You can't really do that anymore. So I just noticed, as they did more sports and they got better, I put them more into different types of sports or activities. Now, things are working. What sucks is you don't know why, right? And so one of the things that I liked about reading your book is, like, you see some of the similarities as to what these special forces people were doing and what your kids are going through. And you start to say, oh, this is why this is happening. Now, what sucks is, my kid's now 19. I wish I would have had this book or this knowledge when they were 3, 4, 5, and 6. How do you bridge that gap, right, with people that want to know, they don't know they need to know? Like, how do you, like, this book should be in everybody's, like, kind of coffee table, right?
This one, that's what he's talking about.
Sorry, like, which book? What are you talking about? There you go.
Dr. Gerson's book, which, I'm sorry, but notice that the title underneath you, Michael, is doesn't have the full title. So thank you, Amanda. You make a very good Vanna White too. Go ahead, Abe.
Oh no, so that's how do you bridge that gap, right? There are people that do know they need help and they know where to look, or they know that they need to look. But people that don't know, that they need help and are going through the situations, what is that aha moment to make that leap from not being, self-aware to being self-aware?
Yeah, just off the top of my head, and I kind of thought about this when Amanda was talking about my nephew Leo, and then now you've mentioned it with your kids, and this connects nicely to the military. Is the military about 10 years ago started teaching something called outcome-based training, and so when I worked in the drill sergeant school at Fort Jackson, we get a lot of military, coming back from deployment, a lot of macho guys that thought, they were expert shooters. And we would provide all this information up front about how to shoot, but the level of confidence, because they were some of them arrogant and cocky, and, some degree you need to have that cockiness to be able to fight in chaos, but they would just not listen, or they'd tune out, or they would, protest or fight back. And the information wasn't being downloaded. And so what the military did was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go out to the ranges and show you how much you suck. And then, when you shoot, you don't even earn a badge as a shooter. Then we're going to come back, and guess what? You're going to have some rabbit ears, and you're going to pay attention, and your pen's going to be smoking. And so, being in the field of psychology, I use a lot of experiments. Like, I want people to go out and play with the material and experience the material and relate to the material. So I don't have something, like a quick technique or tactic right now, but maybe, having them experience, and see how they perform at a task when they're fully focused versus, have the music on, have you dancing in the background, Panda Bear, turn on the TV and get that Nerf hoop and just see, the difference in the score when it's just silent and they're truly focusing, on the back of the rim versus all that just constant sensory, noise that's going on. And maybe that, see, what do you think about that?
Behavioral experiment, essentially.
What's that?
It's a behavioral experiment, essentially.
Right.
You're asking the families or the parents to do a behavioral experiment on their child, or with their child.
And to that point, in respect to families, because I think there are a lot of families that are looking, how does a family build confidence versus arrogance? In fact, let's just forget arrogance altogether. What is the dynamic of a confident family? Am I asking the right question here? Because what I'm thinking is what Abel was talking about. I wish I'd known what I'd known now with this 19-year-old. And I'm thinking, well, if I was a father and in partnership with my wife and we're raising children, how do I partner with my wife so that we raise confident children? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, sounds like you have something for us, Alexis. Wouldn't happen more.
Well, I don't know if I do enough space for the distinction between arrogance and confidence. Yeah. And I'm thinking of leadership and corporate leadership. I'm thinking within families. I'm thinking about the military guys you work with. I'm thinking about the athletes you work with. And what really distinguishes, and perhaps there's even some physiology in the brain, but what is the signature between someone who is arrogant and someone who's confident? And how do I witness that in terms of leadership, whether it's in a family or a corporation or parenting?
Yeah, in the military, we have that conversation quite a bit. And the video I use is Muhammad Ali when he is being interviewed prior to one of his fights. And, he has that whole, he was like the first rapper, right? He has this poetic way of, I'll murder a rock or injure a stone. I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. I turn off the lights and I'm in bed before the lights turn off. I mean, just amazing, right? These amazing images. And so then we have this conversation, is that confidence or arrogance? And confidence to me is this belief in your ability to succeed. And Muhammad Ali had a ton of that. To me, it wasn't really arrogance. Like, arrogance to me is you know it all. You think you have all the answers. And therefore you won't pay attention to anybody. Anybody gives you any type of advice, man, I already know that, right? But confident people, to me, they're always trying, they believe in themselves, but they're always trying to learn more and be better than they are. And it's that real sense of, security in themselves, that conviction. And they believe so much in themselves that it's not that false type of confidence where you have to prove other people wrong or, basically interact in a way where messages don't come through, which is, really protecting your maybe low or mediocre sense of self-esteem.
One of the things that Tiger Woods' father responded with when he was asked about Tiger Woods, and I think he was being interviewed, and someone said the ability of Tiger to focus is incredible. It's not something you normally see. How did you train? What did you do with Tiger in order to get him to be so focused? And Tiger's father responded, I pushed him, but I never broke his spirit. How far do we know when do we know to back off? I've got a son, I've got a daughter, they're showing promise, and I want really to maximize in all my goodness to be a good parent, to really push them. How do I know when to not break their spirit? What's the indication of that?
Yeah, I think nowadays really it's about negotiating. It's about having that conversation, and it's letting your son or daughter know like your intentions. Like, I want to push you. I want to make you feel uncomfortable. I want to make you feel uneasy because that's what it's going to be like, when it's go time. But, if I ever, push you too hard, can you please let me know? So I just, it's important to me to have a real upfront, honest conversation and to have that constant dialogue. And I think what it does is it really teaches, your son or daughter, your children, to have a voice of their own and to be able to, communicate things and push back a little bit, because you're pretty much giving them permission, to push back, and you're not drowning them out, and you're giving them some light, I think, to grow. And you're showing them that you care and it's important to you. So I think there's a lot of wins using that strategy.
If I could just add to that, Michael, for me as a parent, one thing that I really try to do with my kids, and it's always a work in progress, I'm never perfect about it, or I never reach where I want, but I think I always try to be in that kind of balanced approach of, I'm hopefully looking at what their strengths are. I have an open dialogue, so I know what it is that they're interested in. Like, maybe they're good at baseball, but they're really interested in hockey. And maybe they're not great at hockey, but they really are interested in that. So I'd like for them to feel comfortable enough to come to me and say, I really prefer hockey. I know you want me to, I know you're to pay for whatever it is, basketball or baseball, but let me try hockey. And I'd like to be able to listen to them, follow what their interest is, what their strength is. And then at the times, this is where I push, at the times when they are nervous, anxious, worried, and how that looks like often is avoidance behaviors. I don't want to go to the game today. I don't want to go to practice. Or can I just hold off for now? And we'll go to the next game. That's where I kind of pushed them a little bit past their comfort zone. So that and I think that's where, as a parent, if I know my child enough, if we have enough of an open dialogue, if I get to know who they are as a person enough, as an independent person, that I listen to them and that I'm able to feel confident that she can handle this if I push her a little more, and I can teach her persistence. And I am very explicit about it in that I tell them it's really normal and natural to feel worried. And when we feel worried or anxious, we tend to avoid and we tend to not want to do it. So do you think that's what you're doing here? Or, do you think you can kind of push through that fear a little bit and just try it once and see? And if you still, are really feeling sick, because oftentimes they'll come and say they have a stomach ache or a headache, right? If you're still feeling sick 10 minutes into the game, we'll go home. So I'll do a foot in the door phenomenon. I promise you can go home at that point. And 10 out of 10 times so far, my parenting of my kids, I haven't had to go home yet. using that foot in the door phenomenon.
I love that.
Can I add to that and just maybe throw a wrench in there? Now, how do you cope with the families that have divorce, going through a divorce, or split? How do those dynamics change? And what do you do with that?
Right. It's really difficult, isn't it? And Michael, perhaps as I understand that you're a single dad too, single dad psychologist. My understanding is it's unless you have a lower level of conflict between the two parties and a lot of consistency in the parenting, and it's collaborative parenting. I know nowadays sometimes you can't do that. Well, not just nowadays, even in the past, it's difficult because you can only control yourself, right? You can't control the other party. So I know that can be really challenging. Michael, do you have things from your experience that you would recommend, or how do you do it?
No, I mean, that definitely is challenging. I mean, I've just been lucky enough to, have really good conversations and communication with my former partners. And, it hasn't been such an issue that I've had to experience. Not right off the top of my head. I just think, same thing, like just being honest, being clear, sharing your side, and trying to figure out a way to come as a united front. And it goes back to, really the love for your children. Like, it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about our child. We need to be good co-parents, and let's talk about ways to do it, the do's and the don'ts, the rules and the regulations, and, what we're going to avoid. Whether that's nowadays hopping on Zoom together and showing that, you still care, never, putting your former partner down. I think that's a conversation that, shouldn't be avoided, but approached. It's a necessary thing, and it should be a requirement.
Michael, why'd you write the book? I mean, you wrote a book called Deliberate Discomfort. I don't want to be uncomfortable. And you wrote a book telling me that I should, at least, I should place myself there, or at least the title. There's something good about that. Why'd you write the book? What's the title? And what are you hoping that we would learn from it?
Yeah, so you're one of those people that likes to play it safe, huh?
And actually, Michael, just another question just on top of Alexis, if you could talk to this too, is we are forced to be in a discomfort right now with the pandemic.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. It's a timely book.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. When I opened it and started reading, like, just the introduction, I went, oh my God. I mean, I'm a dork, and I think you do this too, Mike. We got this from Dad probably, but
did you
I'm taking pictures and I'm sending the this, and then it's all got its stars and it's underlined. It's so relevant.
You're such a good student.
And I think it's very, very timely, very relevant, and we are all uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. And so what do we do when we're uncomfortable? Right? We freak out. We fight back. We lash out. We become ugly. We fight for our sense of security and put the blankets over our head. I was just listening to Pema Chodron, one of my favorite Buddhist nun monks, and she talks a lot about, just to be human, to live life is about getting acquainted with discomfort. And in fact, that's a part of happiness. Happiness is what we're all hoping to achieve and strive towards. And it's acceptance that life is really uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, we do inane things. And so on a performance and sport level, you cannot play it safe. If you play it safe, you're going to exit really early out of any sport. And you had just talked about that, the approach versus avoidance, scenario. If you are scared of something and you run away because you fear the outcome or you fear what's happening inside your body, then you're not going to play, you're not going to practice, you're not going to be challenged. You have to run towards the discomfort, and the military does that better, I think, than anybody else. That's what they're trained to do. I mean, think of a combat situation where most of us in fight, flight, or freeze, we're running away, right? To keep ourselves alive. And these men and women are running towards the enemy and running towards the fight and running towards the bullets. And so it's important, you know, in their training to be able to make friends with their fear, to be able to put them in all kinds of different situations. And because most of the times it's not as bad as we think. Exactly what you had mentioned earlier, you know, you're 10 for 10, just try it out, you know, see what it's like. And if it doesn't work out, you know, then you can come home, and it never happens, you know? So, sports, a lot of discomfort, you know, war fighting, you know, high amounts, unbelievable amounts of discomfort, and everything we're experiencing right now is tough on many, many levels.
Give us the rewiring for that. Sorry, Abel. Go ahead.
So just part of the techniques too, and I'm using it right now. So
that was going to be my question about the
when I read the book. So I one thing I noticed that I did back before I read the book during my training at my current job, right? There was something that resonated where, you know, the book says you're never as bad as you think you are, and you're never as good either, right? So you shouldn't self-assess. And I remember giving this pitch over and over again in front of one of my colleagues to try to master it for kind of an upcoming internal test, whatever, with my manager. And I kept stumbling, and I kept going back. And she said, "Stop, hold on. You're overthinking this. You're actually giving a really good presentation. You're the one stopping yourself." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I think I screwed this up." She said, "No, so finish it. Just focus, finish it, and then we'll review it from the beginning to end." And she goes, "You're actually doing really well." And that just like, all right, cool. That next pitch was actually, I wouldn't say flawless, but probably one of the better pitches I had given in a long time. Mm-hmm. And so that really resonated with me. And in the book, it talks about how, you know, you look at the highlight reels, right? And it's like, wow, you know, once you see it on screen, you're like, wow, I wasn't as good or I wasn't as bad. And it helps to have that third party assess that situation, right? Mm-hmm. Now after reading it, I'm like, you know, I like the fact that it points out how the little things in life actually matter too, whether it's like, you know, getting up and, you know, doing some menial task. And so I'm not here speed bagging because I suck at it, and my son's kicking my butt at it because he shows off and he's like, "Look, I can do this," and I've got three hits in before I fail. So I'm like, all right, why am I failing, right? So I saw the you know, observe, orient, decide, and act. And so I thought, this is perfect. I'm going to try it here. And so as I'm doing the speed bag, I'm like, all right, I start messing up. And then why am I messing up? I'm thinking about lunch. And I'm like, all right, I have to I've observed that. Let me orient. Let me focus on the bag. What do I have to do? This move. And it helped me get through that routine. So something that small is like, man, I've made so many gains in that instance. Oh, you know, greater than the last 2 or 3 weeks of trying to do the speed bag. So now I'm like, I'm dying to try this technique and the techniques in the book on lots of things in life. So I just wanted to shout that out because I think it's really cool techniques, man. Easy to learn, easy to understand. So I want to thank you for including those in there.
Absolutely. No, that's a good, that's a good awareness tool. And then be able to train it's called the OODA loop, you know, try to get quicker at training your OODA loop. And the story is really cool. I mean, I forget it because I've been out of the military for a while as a consultant, but I believe that model came from, I don't remember, the Colonel Boyd, who was a fighter pilot in Vietnam. And he had like 2 or 3 enemy fighters on his tail. And he was able to reverse it and shoot them down, which is, you know, incredible. And then when he went back and reviewed and did the action after review, which they do in the military, he came up with exactly his system for being able to, you know, do a little jiu-jitsu up in the air.
You know, Michael, one of the terms you've used, I'm so glad you said that, because one of the themes in the work I do, and I hear it in the brilliance of the men and women we invite to be here, is this underlying narrative of perfection, and particularly in parenting. And I love what you just said is, you know, your orient. Can you talk about that? is it voodoo in respect to parenting? Because oftentimes parents want to get it right. They want to get it right the first time. They want to nail it. I mean, I asked someone once, what is parenting like? And they said it's like having your heart outside your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, that's terrifying. If that doesn't freak you out, nothing will. So how do you take what this fighter pilot did and this methodology, this construct, and bring it into parenting in just very small techniques? What can parents say to themselves to reorient themselves?
Right. So OODA loop for parents. That sounds like a good title for a book, upcoming book.
Only 10% of the royalties.
Right. The orienting part is, we use WIN in sports, which is an acronym that stands for what's important now. And so maybe that's a good acronym to use to orient your eyes and your brain to what's important. What's important really right now is putting down my own phone, putting down the work, and turning off the stove for a minute, and really, just focusing on what my child has to say and what they're dealing with. Observing maybe their nonverbals, that will give you some extra and additional information about what they might be experiencing. Going internal, observing your own thought process, your own emotional state, your own physiological reaction. Deciding is really about, observe, orient, decide, about managing, everything that's going on, the orientation and the observing and the deciding, what you're going to do about it. Observe, orient, decide, and then committing to that decision.
Michael, oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to share, when you said that, I was taken aback, because I was multitasking. So, but I was taken aback.
Which is a good job, right?
That's right. But my mind went to an incident that happened yesterday with my youngest. And I had 2 meetings, and I had exactly 30 minutes to make the kids lunch before I had to hop on the next meeting. So I was very focused on, okay, I gotta make lunch for the kids. And my youngest, he reached out to me, right? He said, "Mom, I want to show you something." He had made something he was very proud of. He'd drawn something. Like, "Mom," and I was very busy. Like, "Okay, hold on, just 1 minute, okay?" Because I also believe in the parent needs to set the tone there, and so you need to wait 1 minute. So I'm getting all my food and all this stuff out, and he said, "Mom," again after a minute, said, "Do you see that I'm busy? Like, I am making food for you guys." And my mind went to, I'm doing something for you. If I don't make the food now, you don't have something to eat. You should be appreciative that I'm making you food, and this is something for you. And for him, Michael, what you're saying is, in that moment, what I should have done was turn off the stove, put my stuff down, and take that minute to look at what he's coming to me with. He's making a bid for my attention. And he probably would have been fine not eating, for the next hour if the food didn't get done, or, I'm sure he would love a snack. So that he has that moment to share with me in that moment, something he was so proud of, and I think that's what, when you were talking about that, my mind went there of how I could have not done that better, but perhaps next time I could use that strategy to remind myself, okay, stop, what is really important now? What was the acronym you used for that?
Was a WIN, what's important?
WIN.
Yeah.
WIN,
What is important?
It's interesting, as you just said that, what came to mind is that what he was looking for was a different kind of nourishment, right? You were preparing food for him.
Yes.
But what he wanted, emotional nourishment, right? Yes. And it's not that he doesn't want to eat later, but what he needed most immediately. And if you had made the food and didn't attend to him, he would have filled his belly, but his emotions would never have been satisfied, right? And Michael, I'm wondering about the emotion that comes with the work you do. Can you talk about the emotional power of the psychology of thought and what we tell ourselves about how emotionally either motivate us or disincentivizes us, and the people and the children, if I'm a parent?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, you were breaking up.
I can't. That was one time. That just came from somewhere, and Now it's
That
about
was from the divine.
it's the emotional power. Here we are with Dr. Kat, and she has this opportunity to reflect. But the emotional surge, and the binary aspect of the emotion with what we're thinking to motivate us. If I'm working with an athlete and an athlete is in a slump, I remember a baseball player was talking about being in Seattle, and he threw a pitch, and the guy hit the ball over the park. And when the ball was struck, the pitcher said, I looked, and I saw the ball going out of the stadium, and Mount Rainier was in the background. He said, and I thought, nice mountains. And he went back.
Humor right there.
Right, but he went back and struck the next pitcher out. So can you talk about our emotional state in regards to how we think and actually give ourselves kind of the oomph we need to operate at a much higher level of excellence?
Yeah, so in our field, we use a theory called cognitive behavioral theory, like most people do, or they use some of the times. And basically what it says is that our thoughts influence our emotions and our physiology, which influence performance. In the sports world, we call it the thought performance interaction model. So thoughts influence emotions and physiology, and then behavior and action. And I differentiate like behavior and performance. Like behavior to me is what you do, and performance is how well you do it. So there's a evaluative process to it. So one of the things we try to help people with is one of the mental skills is confidence, the ability, your ability to be convicted. It's that thought process of why be Clark Kent when I can be Superman. And our thought process then, if you want to skip over emotion and physiology, impacts our outcome. So if you can monitor your thought process, hopefully not as you are playing, right? Because you're trying to merge action and performance and what you do, but maybe prior to or in practice, really maybe fill out a thought log or a diary and think about, the situation, what you're thinking, what's your emotional impact, and kind of work down the chain. Then you can catch, in these moments when I'm underperforming, like, what am I thinking? Let me just, take a little, piece of information out of my head, put it in the petri dish, put it under the microscope, analyze it, and see, are my thoughts impacting those other internal happenings or chain of events? So in the confidence world, we use a lot of like self-talk, or we use affirmations, or we use belief statements, or we use just motivational languages, catchphrases. You remember the Talladega Nights, shake and bake. I say it 10,000 times. It feels good. So language really, it matters. And so if we can monitor our language, if we can change our language, if we can prepare our language ahead of time, then that can influence the result. It was a mouthful.
And it influences the results when you think about the cognitive behavioral principle. It influences the results often through the mood that it elicits, right? So like I had a kid who was, who I worked with as a psychologist, who was very fearful. His parents really wanted to be in baseball. He wanted to be, but he was really fearful that the ball was going to hit him. And so he was avoiding the first initial games. And one of the strategies we use was what's called exposure therapy, which is his dad taking him to the ballpark and throwing the ball at him, and using the cognitive behavioral principle was he was saying what we discovered when we had him stop and ask himself, what's going through my mind? What am I thinking? And what he was thinking was, the ball's going to hit me and I'm going to go to the hospital. So as he's going up to hit the ball over and over and over again, he's envisioning saying to himself that he's in this ambulance with a bloody nose on the way to the hospital.
Oh, poor God.
Yeah. And of course that mood, the feeling you get then is fear, shame, that you made this mistake, and feeling really sad or down, like hopeless. And so changing his thoughts, we replace those thoughts with, okay, you're going to identify what you're thinking and you're going to replace it. And you're going to think, I got this. The ball has not hit me all this time, and if it does, Dad's here to help me. It's not going to be so bad, which changed the way he felt. And the pride that he felt when he was able to go up there, and he missed the ball like 20 times. Like he just kept missing it, but it didn't matter. He was so proud. He was so, I think, motivated that he just actually just went up and swung, just tried. And I think about that cognitive behavioral principle of what your thoughts are, what you say to yourself is so important because it affects how you feel. And if you feel scared when you're walking up to a situation, you're going to behave a different way than if you feel like confident. I got this. I can do this.
Mm-hmm. That takes me back to my childhood where it was coach saying, look, bottom line is everybody's going to get hit. So we're going to stand up right here and we're going to throw the ball and you're going to feel it. And everybody took a hit and it was it that bad? No, it's okay. All right, we're ready to rock and roll it, right? I don't know if that's special forces type training, but I do remember that method. I don't know if that's the right one to use, but
a little bit of dodgeball.
Yeah, a little bit
dodgeball.
Well, going back to affirmations, I know we are in lockdown and people are isolated. Mike, you know me well, and I had a very charmed life. And about 20, I think it was 25 or 26 was the first time I was confronted with problems and with depression. And I was like, oh, like, crap, I don't know what to do with this. And I would wake up every morning and be like, man, I just want to be myself. And it was a holistic approach in acupuncture and a lot of mantras that helped me get through it and change my mindset. I think it was, I forgive myself, I love myself, I release all anger and resentment, I allow life to be fun. And I wrote it in and mind you, this wasn't just any doctor, this was my acupuncturist, right? She would say, she wouldn't even start treating me until we had like a 10-minute counseling session, right? And then she'd go in and treat me. And so I had the marker and I would write it on my mirror. And that's how I was able to release all that bad chi that was inside me. So relating it to today, for the past 6 months, as I've been trying to get through my personal trauma, my mantra was like, keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. And I thought I was out of it. And now I'm like, oh, fuck, we're in isolation, right? So a lot of the times I'm in isolation. You get to be in isolation with our family. Good luck. But I get to be in isolation alone. And then, with Leo, and sometimes he's with his dad. How do we shift that mindset? For my employees, I told them we're not opening before July. So that was me just boom, right away trying to shift their mindset and my own. Because if I thought this was 1 week and then like, oh, it's extended another week and another week, I would be going #Howard Hughes in the house right now. What would you recommend? Seriously, you don't want to see my toenails. But what would you recommend for us? This is something you touched on in your chapter, especially with a personal creed and a team creed, and how do we use these affirmations right now to change our mindset so we stay healthy, we stay focused, and we avoid depression and can be good parents? I mean, I'm losing it sometimes with Leo.
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize, your experience or anything, but anytime I hear affirmations, I get the Saturday Night Live, Guy Smiley who looks in the mirror and he says, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. So the affirmations, they feel sometimes like, California hot tub, in my mentor used to say, but they work, right? They reprogram our subconscious mind. And so once again, like being intentional, being deliberate, creating like your COVID-19 mental health, mental toughness program. And then affirmations is just one piece. I was just working with a student. I'm his supervisor. And he's doing field work in our program. You have to have 4 internships. It's very hands-on and very applied. And he's been at home by himself for, over a month now. And just doing a mental health check and like, what are you doing? And he's starting to, feel depressed and feel sad and feel blue and feel angry and not eating right and not sleeping and not and was like, hey, you're in the field of sport and performance psychology, be your own performance psychologist, like put together a program so that you can operate, you know, in this most challenging and harrowing time that we're all dealing with. So we had a 30, 45 minute conversation, and we're going to get back together next week, but he's doing the mindfulness training, which he took a course of mine, and we went back to the Chinese menu that I created, where, you know, it's more than just sitting down, closing your eyes and breathing. You know, you're trying to create a deliberate way, a method, your own formula to enter, you know, a mindfulness state. Are you going to do some prayer? Are you going to do some compassion? Are you going to do, you know, are you going to, like, how are you going to sit? What do you want your mindset to be? Are you going to start with breathing? You know, what type of breathing? And then the coming out phase. So you can create a lot of detail in your own COVID performance program. Affirmations being a key. But there are a lot of other you know, tactics and hacks that you can use to combine them together. And that's what we do in the field is, you know, sometimes the brain creates, especially the amygdala, creates such a sense of fear, right? That the only way to overcome it is to combine and interlock a lot of different skills together. So the affirmations with the meditation, with, you know, the acknowledging the fear, with, you know, thinking about cultivating compassion for yourself and others, you know, understanding are interconnected with other people, you know, using this or looking at this as a time to reflect, you know, writing out goals, you know, using imagery about what you're, you know, why wait till you get outside? Like you can be tackling things right now so that when you step outside, you're stepping mid-stride. So there's so much that we can do. And I would suggest for people to put their own personal program together. You know, do yourself a favor and do other people a favor if you're hanging out with them, as is my case.
I know one of the things I learned through, I've been doing a lot of mindfulness training with this new company, and it's the power move. So I notice when I'm getting down or I need to change my energy, that physical activity is really important. You know, we just had people know we just had a death in the family yesterday, and I was super down and didn't even think I'd be on the show. And I'm like, well, what can I do to get out of that state and to not fall down that what I call the rabbit's hole or that downward spiral. And I think sometimes like mine is like I got there, so I'm gonna, what do they say, like interrupt that negative thought pattern. Is that something you teach people when you're working with athletes or with other individuals?
Yeah, in fact, last year I worked with the Iron Cowboy, and he ran, he did 50 commands in 50 days in 50 states.
Wow.
Imagine that. And so we worked together on stage. He would he'd tell the audience his story. And this guy, like, he had no education and mental skills, but because he's experienced that, I mean, he just, like, what he had to share was so rich. And then what we did, something like really creative and fun and innovative, is I helped him talk about and create some space to have a conversation about, like, what is his own personal mental skills program look like, and deconstruct what he's thinking. And it was, you know, it was an amazing, you know, experience for him and myself. But I think, the mental toughness piece is super essential. Mindfulness is just one component of that. And, to go out and try to figure out, just different ways of being able to, keep yourself present, focused, and confident, and managing your emotions and not falling apart and unraveling. And there's just so much that people can learn, I think grabbing the Deliberate Discomfort book is one of them.
Hold it up, Amanda. Hold up the book.
Yeah. So, hey, bro, I know where you live, but this is where I do my shameless plug. how do people get a hold of you if they have more questions or they want to talk? Or, I mean, we didn't even touch on like you working with the Seattle Mariners and top athletes like Cano. I'm sure people are going to have preguntas.
Well, that's a good question because I'm not a big social media guy.
I know, we're working on this.
Maybe they can just connect with you. You can screen them, you know. If you
Amanda is a connector.
Amanda, then answer the question and send the tough ones to me. You can screen them.
So Amanda, you're it. Tag, you're it.
Yeah, but I guess I can share my email, which is mgerson@jfku.edu. And if you have a question, I'd be more than happy to handle it. And just listen to your story, provide some suggestions. You can go to Amazon and buy Deliberate Discomfort. We're doing a lot of podcasts, for the book. And then I think our last meeting we were gonna, because I wasn't on it, we're gonna do an audio book. So that should be out,
Great. And just to make sure I have that correct, it's mgerson@jfk.edu.
jfku.edu.
Okay, let me change that. One thing you said, Michael, that I really, really loved was you talked about mental toughness, which most people, including myself, think of as tough as you're fighting against something and you can win. You can, it's a very active fighting. And really, when you explain what you mean by mental toughness, what you're really saying, I mean, a big part of it is mindfulness, right? Which is being able to sit still, be present, be focused on what's happening right now. It's not necessarily toughness in the way popular culture dictates or defines it. And I love that you explain that to us in that way. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree. It's not, and that's the misconception. A lot of times I've tried to steer away from mental toughness, but I like the words. It's not about chewing glass or running through brick walls. It really is about being more aware and more regulated and being flexible. I think that's the big thing. In the military, they call it semper Gumby, like being Gumby-like, tackling problems and not letting it affect you and become, like Pema Chodron says, just unglued or losing it.
Yeah.
I definitely like that it's from the context of the special forces, because it makes all the things that I thought were hard, like nothing, right? Like, man, if these guys can perform at that level under these circumstances of like life and death, and I'm talking about being late to a concert or, bad hair day, it totally resets your focus, right? So I think it's a really good starting point too.
Gabe, don't speak about bad hair days in front of me.
The COVID hair.
Michael, you work with some of the most amazing people in the business, and we didn't get a chance to really talk about just how prolific you are, but thank you for being here. If there was one thing you can leave us with that's a mantra that perhaps we can just repeat to ourselves every day, something very small, but it may make a difference in that time when the mother's cooking and the little boy wants her to come in. What's the one thing maybe you can offer that every morning we can repeat as a mantra just to bring us to that place?
Yeah, I think that you just real simple, be here now. Two things that I use right now, trying to cultivate more joy, and this comes from Lama Subra Das's laugh the cosmic laugh, lighten up and be enlightened is a good one. And then Joseph Goldstein does in, out, deep, slow, calm, ease, and you're matching your breath, present moment, wonderful moment. And I think those are really nice little expressions or mantras, to cultivate joy and also to be in the present moment. That's where the magic happens, right? That's where the power is in the present moment.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming onto the show, Michael Gerson, Deliberate Discomfort on Amazon. And also your email address is right there on the screen, Abel Gutierrez, single dad and scientist, as well as you are hosting a show called Science Squawk. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
And what day and time of the week is it on, Abe?
It is Monday at 5 o'clock every week. So
Mondays at 5. It's happy hour time. Grab your glass of wine. Or your Gatorade if you're a sports psychologist. Alexis Dixon, thank you so much for joining again. As always, my ever eloquent, not frozen co-host. And Amanda, thanks for sharing your stories. We're
Always.
really sorry about the news you heard yesterday, and what a survivor. I jokingly put up survivor to your brother on your screen, but really a survivor to, this is your fourth trauma you've experienced in just a few months, and that's not even counting the pandemic. So I really appreciate you creating this forum, this platform for all of us to come together and learn from each other. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you, guys. I love you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, yes, please come back next Saturday at 5 for a really deeply special show to me. One of my closest friends, Dr. Jill Stoddard, is coming on the show along with Dr. Lisa Black, another good friend. But I think that you will be really you'll be really pleased to come and listen into what they have to say. So we'll send out some details on that. Thank you, everyone.